Welcome to another episode of Behind the Dreamers. I'm Jennifer Loading, and we are talking to the achievers, the creators, the magic makers, and the dreamers. These are our friends. These are your friends, and they are living the extraordinary. I read this awesome quote today by Elizabeth Gilbert. Deep grief sometimes is almost like a specific location, a coordinate on a map of time. When you are standing in that forest of sorrow, you cannot imagine that you could ever find your way to a better place. But if someone can assure you that they themselves have stood in that same place and now have moved on, sometimes this will bring hope. And I think this is such a great just message for what we're going to be talking about today. You guys are going to want to stick around to hear this story. My guest today is a young widow, a mom to 5-year-old twins. She says what started as a calling became a personal mission when her late husband took his life after battling mental illness and addiction. She became a therapist because she knew what it is like to experience pain and what it's like to fight toward healing. So we're going to be chatting with her. But before we do that, we have to give a shout out to our sponsors. So today's episode is brought to you by Walt Mills Photography. If you are a creator needing post-production, consultation, or promotion, Walt Mills is your guy. Whether short films, YouTube films, photography work, or a new headshot, he can help you find a solution to match your needs. To learn more about Walt and his work, go to photosbywalt.com. We also want to give a shout out to our friend Chris Clow of Upbeat Media Production. If you are in need of turnkey special event production, Clow is your go-to. You can learn more about him and his work at upbeatmediapro.com. All right, I'm super excited to welcome my guest today. Krissie Lain Garland is a licensed professional counselor, certified trauma specialist, life coach, author, and speaker. She holds a master's degree in marriage and family counseling from Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. Krissie grew up as a pastor's kid and has a heart for working with the local church. With her experience, education, and extensive background working in the behavioral health field, Krissie partners with churches and parachurch ministries worldwide to help educate others in understanding mental illness in a biblical and practical way. So Krissie, I want to say welcome to Behind the Dreamers. We're so excited to have you here today.
Thank you. It's so good to be here to talk with you, and just thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you have such a powerful story. And when I first met you, and I told you I went through your site and I was like, wow, what a brave woman you are. I mean, just to have gone through what you've gone through, to be able to take your story and move that into a place of helping others and helping others heal and just become better. I think, wow, just what a remarkable story. So I want to say in advance, just thank you for sharing with our people and being open and just authentic and real.
Yes. Well, thank you for saying that. It's been a long journey. It is a long journey, but I'm excited to be able to make purpose in the pain. So
Yeah. And that's the thing, before we get into this, I think, you said, when I read something here about knowing the experience and what it feels towards healing. And I think so many people have their own stories, right? And it's when we can come on the other side of going through something as painful as that and using that, like you said, just to have purpose and taking it to move it into another place. It's almost healing for us as well, for the person going through it, and they always say you learn when you help other people, right? Like you learn what the things you need to know by helping others.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you never wish these things upon yourself. You never really expect them. And so when they do happen and you're in this place of sorrow and pain, you think there can't be any purpose in it. But somehow, when you are willing, when you're open to share and talk about it, God will use it to help other people. Because He doesn't leave us. He doesn't leave our story untold. Like, it is going to matter and it is going to minister and help other people. We just have to be in the place and willing to share it and allow God to use our pain. Yeah.
I love that, Krissie. Okay, so I want to open this up. I want to talk about what you're doing right now because you've got all these titles. I was going through your stuff. I'm like, wow, because you were doing some of this stuff really before, all this happened. And then you've moved into this. And I love that you're a life coach and a trauma specialist. And so tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now and how you're helping the people in your space.
Yes, absolutely. Well, like I just said, you don't know what life looks at like when you're in that place of pain and heartache. And I had no idea I'd be doing what I'm doing now, but I'm so thankful. I love what I get to do right now. And it's kind of a part of a redemption process of what happened with my late husband, Eric, and with his death by suicide. And so I was already in private practice doing counseling, marriage and family counseling. My husband was a pastor. We were in ministry, in church ministry. And so we just had our twins. And so we kind of had reached a place that we thought, okay, this is what we had planned for many, many years. And after that, when he started struggling, he had cancer and he started struggling with addiction and different things and tried to hide it. That's kind of what led to his death. And so he was a pastor. He was a Christian. He was an outgoing guy, but he struggled with some deep rooted issues: depression, isolation, addiction. He also had cancer because of just all the issues he struggled with. And he had that physical aspect too of the cancer and the mental aspect of depression and bipolar. And so all that led to him making that decision. And I remember thinking, as a therapist, I didn't help the man in my home. I didn't help the one I loved the most. And that was challenging for me. I even questioned, should I be in this field? And somehow the Lord opened doors to where I wasn't still in this field, but I was in this field working with people like me and my husband. So now I am a counselor for an organization called Care for Pastors. And we provide counseling, resources, a safe place and environment for pastoral families. So a lot of times in leadership at churches, a lot of leaders cannot talk about these kind of struggles. And it's fear of rejection, fear of being fired, fear of not being understood, a lot of things there. But we operate on a place that says it's okay to be a pastor, it's okay to be a leader and struggle with these things. And there is help, there's hope and there's help. And so all I do now is I work for this organization and I do counseling for pastoral families, pastors' kids, pastors' spouses. And I also, just as a side, I do go to churches and I speak and I try to educate churches on how to work with people who are struggling with mental illness, how to understand it in a biblical way, how to open up conversation with their own staff, because people are struggling. Suicides are increasing, and that does not skip churches, that does not skip pastors. And so I get the opportunity to go and speak to other churches. I also co-authored a book called Open Letters to Our Fellow Fighters. And that book is about understanding mental health in a biblical way and really to kind of change the conversation in church that we can still be a Christian, we can still love God and God still loves us and still struggle with these things. And to tell people you're not alone. You're not alone in these struggles and you shouldn't be shamed for them. And we want you to get help from the church body so that you don't make the decision that my late husband made, because he felt hopeless and alone and no one really did understand him. But now that we're having these conversations more openly and honestly, hopefully we can save more lives that way.
Yeah, this is powerful. And I think that something you touched upon there is you mentioned being in the church and people are not talking about it, but I think there's, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's this stigma about mental health, like it's like we have to be strong. And I say this personally because I don't share this with a lot, but my oldest daughter struggled with some of that for a while and had to have a therapist for a while, help her with that. And it was a tough thing, but I think we get so into this mindset that we're supposed to be strong and there's a weakness that's tied to that. Like, right. It makes you appear weak. And so we don't want to come forward and say, hey, I'm really struggling with depression or this, and I could certainly see, I'm not in that environment. So I never like to say I understand how somebody feels because I don't think that's fair, but I can imagine how somebody can feel being in a situation where they're being respected and they're being looked up to, and yet they're struggling with their own demons. And where do you go for help? Like, what do you do? Right? Like, what's that next step look like?
Well, and that's the vicious cycle.
I mean,
yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank you. No, you're fine. Thank you for sharing about your daughter. I think so many people can relate to that. And that's the vicious cycle, especially just with Christian communities, is like, we feel that shame, like something's wrong with us. And it's such a vulnerable type of pain that it's hard to reach out. It's hard to talk about it. And then if someone does, a lot of people don't know how to receive it and help in it. And so that's kind of the vicious cycle. So we go back to shame. And I think a lot of times we feel like this must be a problem with my faith or my spirituality, because I can't get over this. I can't overcome it. I can't have joy in it. And so I think these are the unrealistic expectations we have on ourselves when it comes to mental health, because we view mental health like we view a disease. Like when my husband had cancer, he was treated just with respect and love and support. But then when it came out that he had struggled with mental illness, no one knew what to say, do, think, act. And so that's kind of how we have to have these conversations to say, it's okay to talk about these things. And if you don't know how to respond to someone struggling, tell them you're going to try to learn about it. Tell them you're going to walk with them and help them find somebody who does. Because when someone finally does share about it, that's a huge deal. And that's the first step, is tell somebody, because otherwise you're going to be stuck in that cycle of shame, of feeling, and then that leads to isolation and leads to just, like I said, that could lead to suicidal thoughts, to self-harm thoughts. And so that's why it's so important to talk about it.
Yeah. And I feel like all of us know somebody that has struggled with it, or even, on some level. I've known people that have committed suicide. I knew somebody recently during COVID that committed suicide. And so, yeah, it's a tough subject, and it is one that needs to be addressed. And I love getting, people like you on here who've really, not because you've had to witness it firsthand, but you know what it's like to go through that. You know what it's like to sit on that other side and not know how to help, and necessarily how to help in that moment, right? Because we don't think it's gonna be our people. You know what I mean? Like we think it's somebody else's problem until it hits home in our home, and then we realize, no, we all struggle with something. Like all of us at a time have some kind of struggle. It's whether or not we have this mental illness, and how do we move forward, and do we get the help we need? So I think you said something really good about the asking for the help, because that's the first step, right? And the recovery is coming forward. So hard for a lot of people to do that.
Yes. And I want to affirm those people. I get it. Like we hid in shame for a long time with my late husband's struggles, because anytime we did tell somebody, it was met with, I don't want to say ignorance, but if it wasn't ignorance, then it was just apathy. Like no one really knew how to help. And we were even told, just don't talk about this with anybody else. And so that needs to change. That, like you talked about the stigma, that stigma needs to change, and we should not suffer in silence. And if you're listening to this and you're struggling, or if you know someone who's struggling, ask questions. Don't keep silent. Don't isolate. You need to share. And if you share with somebody who does not receive it well, go share with somebody else, because your life is worth that much. You are worth that much. And so it's changing the conversation, changing the understanding of what mental health is, and that there is a lot of resources out there to help people now. There's so many. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. So now, do you still do like marriage counseling, or pretty much just stick to what you're doing with the churches? Are you involved in this other piece of it?
So sometimes I'll take on a married couple in the ministry. I work with a lot of married couples with their kids who are struggling. Okay. And so, yes, do I do it in the private practice sense that I used to? No, but it's still similar problems that you experience, even in private practice outside of the ministry world. Marriage is hard. It's hard. And we all have the same struggles and different issues. And so even pastors and their spouses need that.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because I feel like, yes, you're right. It doesn't really matter where you come from or where you're at or how much money you have. We all have issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all have something we're dealing with so at any given point in time. And so it's interesting that, you'll think, well, these people are over here, and just because they have this, they're isolated. They don't have the same trouble that somebody else is having. But marriage is marriage, and it is work, and issues arise in capacity. It doesn't matter whether you have a lot of money or not, because you find different things to have issues with, right? It's like if you have kids, you don't have money, you don't have money, right? You've just got working on. So
exactly. Yeah. And I think that's important to say, especially on public platforms. Like, you're not weak because you're struggling. You're not less than because you can't seem to get over it. Like, that's why God provides resources like doctors and counselors, so that we can plug into those resources and get the help we need. Because we're all not perfect. All of us are not perfect. And we have to kind of say, that's okay. That's okay. Because as long as we keep trying to be, as long as we keep trying to like have it all together, then we're going to keep being met with just disappointment and struggle. And so, yes, it's important to get that help when you need it and be okay with getting that help.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier that you go around speaking. Are you doing this mostly through the ministry, or do you have like other platforms that you go and share this story with?
Yes. So I do several speaking engagements through Care for Pastors. Like this next month, I'll be in Florida doing a Pastors' Wives conference, and I love doing stuff like that. But then I also do podcasts. I do, if someone has heard the story and really wants to educate their church on what mental health is from a biblical point of view, from just to really reach out to the people they know their congregation is struggling. I'll go to those churches, and they will have me talk about the importance of like understanding what mental illness is, seeing it from a biblical perspective, and really connecting resources with the church to partner with, so that they can get the help in their community right there where they need it. So, and I'll speak for camps and things like that as well. But I absolutely love doing it. It's an honor for me to do it, because I was always the wife that was kind of behind the husband, the pastor husband. And he was so fantastic at speaking and relating to people. And so it's just very humbling that I'm doing that now with everything we've been through, because he was the talented one. He was the one that could get up in front of a crowd and everybody loved him. And I would be that adoring wife, that would just watch him and just be so proud of him. But God was like, okay, it's your turn. It's your turn, because I also gave you a voice. I also gave you a message. And I fought that for a little bit. But I finally surrendered it and said, okay, God, if you open up opportunities, I'll take them. I'll take them, because I want other people to have hope, to feel less alone. So
yeah.
Yes, to answer your question, I do speak.
No, and thank you for sharing all that, because I think that this is important. This is the thing, the beauty of this podcast that I do, because I bring people from all different walks of life. And some people have really hard stories, and I always say I'm a sucker for the hard story, because I've had my own, nothing like that, but I've had my own journey that I had to go through, and it led to a lot of mental problems for me. There was a lot of desperation in it. And so when I say that I feel like I've been in the lowest of the pit, I feel like I have been there before. I understand, not, like I said, I never go in and say I understand how somebody feels. I know how I felt at the time when I didn't see any hope. Thankfully, I always say, I'm a fighter. And so there was a moment when I had a coming to Jesus where I realized that my life couldn't go on the way that it was going to go. And I had to do something. Like, I had to make a change. And I did. And I was able to heal myself and use my story to now do what I do, which is what I love doing. And it's helping, inspiring other people to be great and to step out of their space and really know that they can make a difference and they can make different decisions. Right. But I love you guys and sharing your stories and being willing to be real and authentic. And that's what I love. Everybody comes on there. They have something different. Some of them, it's just, they have a crazy idea that they're trying to share in their business that somebody else may resonate with. That's the thing. I want them to resonate with our audience. Find something. There will be somebody to hear your story and say, yeah, I needed to hear this today.
That's awesome. No, and to kind of just bounce off what you just said and what I had said a while ago is I always felt I'm a small fish in a big pond. I'm a small fish in a big pond. My voice doesn't really matter. And so that kept me from stepping out and really using the gifts and the passions God had within me to do what I was passionate about. And I think when Eric died, something changed in me. And you hit this crossroads, right? And the crossroads is I could either stay this way or I could do something about it. And I remember feeling that freedom of like stepping out in the light and saying, I'm going to do something about it. And if I'm a small fish in a big pond, then God, use this small fish as much as you can. My friends always say you're a small fish that makes big waves. And I love that because I'm like, okay, let's do this. And it's really about like, it's that fight within you, that fight to say, I'm not going to stay here. This will not be my identity. And I'm going to follow what I feel like the Lord wants me to do. And I'm going to do the things I'm passionate about. And whoever, even if just one person listens, if one person's life has changed, God like made it very clear. If it's just one, you do it. You do it. And so anyway, that's just what I would encourage anyone who felt like I
Krissie.
felt to you do have a voice and your voice matters. And even if it's a voice to one person, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Thank you. So good. So I want to ask you, you've said a lot of really good things here and you gave some great advice, for somebody struggling with mental illness, but I would say, I want to ask this, kind of open this up to anybody, because we've talked a little bit about here, whatever people are going through, whatever the struggle is, right? Everybody's got their own thing. So what advice would you lend to somebody maybe that's going through something hard right now? Maybe not just mental illness, but maybe they're just going through something hard right now and they don't really know what to do.
First, I mean, as a counselor, as someone who just has a heart for people who are hurting, I just say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you have gone through what you've gone through, that you're going through what you're going through, that you've had to experience this. And just know that you're loved and you are seen. And I'm just so sorry you're hurting right now. The second thing I would say is you're not alone. I think if anything today, we've talked like we all struggle. We all are dealing with something. And I think oftentimes we feel so isolated in our pain and so isolated in our suffering and struggle that we feel alone, and we're not. And so that's why it's so important. I always say share stories in safe places, to share your story, to talk about it, because you're not meant to live this life alone. We're not. We're meant to share in this life together. And I know not everyone is safe. And I know there's so few probably around you that you can trust, but find someone you trust and talk to them about it, because you are loved, you are important. And you, like I said, your voice matters, but you're worthy of fighting. You're worthy of getting the help you need. And you're worthy of being loved by other people. But you have to put yourself out there and say, like I said, I'm not going to stay stuck in this. But it's okay to hurt. It's okay if you need to grieve. I still grieve years later. I don't know if it'll ever go away. I just know that it has shifted. It has shifted to more empathy, to helping others. And so I just want to encourage you. I always say, let it hurt. Let it hurt. Grieve what is going on, what is happening, but don't stay there. Keep moving forward with that grief, with that hurt, and fight for your life. I know it sounds so cheesy. It sounds like a Rocky quote or something, but but we have to fight for our life with all the heartache in this world. And I wrote in the book, like, I remember standing on a stage feeling completely defeated, completely ill-equipped to speak on this subject and about mental health in front of 1,000 people. And I remember saying, no, I'm not going to let what the quote is, I'm not going to let Satan, I'm going to take back the ground that Satan thought he had won, was my quote. And I remember I'm like, I'm going to take this back. I'm going to take this back. And so if you're hurting, if you're struggling, know that you're not alone, that you're loved, you're important, you're seen. This won't last forever. And yeah, take back the ground. Take back the ground and fight and keep living your life, because it's not over. You have a purpose and you have no idea what it is. And so you have to get up and keep fighting forward.
Yeah, I think the thing that you said there that really resonated, I guess, or sticking, is the fact that you're saying it's okay to grieve, accept the emotion, grieve, but don't stay in there. Don't stay there for long. Move forward. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people. And even taking it away from this kind of a tragedy, but just even in life in general, I think so many people feel that they get wronged or betrayed or hurt, right? And they absorb the emotion, but then they just get stuck in the bitterness of the emotion. You know what I mean? Like they just stay stuck. And instead of moving forward, I deal with this in the life coaching as well, because when we're trying to unpack why people are not reaching the goals that they wanted, you know where I'm going with this. When they're not reaching the goals that they want, we go back to there's some kind of limiting belief, right? There's something they're hanging on to, and it's probably something that they acquired from something early on in the first few years of their life, you know, whatever. But there's something. So I think take this a step further, pull it out of just, you know, something that's happened in a grief situation, but just in life in general, they get hung up on things and they don't move past, right? And so we have grief that we have happen, something that does happen, but even on a subconscious level, we have things that we're hanging on to that we can't move past, right? And so I think the idea here, life coach perspective, is that that's where we have to take ownership and say that we're no longer going to let a situation or a circumstance define us as a human being. How can we make purpose out of what's going on here?
Yes, and that's why life coaches, counselors, they're so important, because they help you kind of process through that and unpack that. And I know it's scary to think about doing that, but it's ultimately so healthy. And so I encourage anyone listening, if that's something you have been fearful to do or hesitant, do that. Because like Jennifer said, she's a life coach, and I don't know, I can't say this for Jennifer, but I have a counselor. And that counselor helps me, and I am a counselor. So I just think we need to say, if you need help, get it. And it's okay. It's okay, because wait, what did you say?
I said, I have a mentor as well. I mean, that's what I was joking about, is that coaches have coaches too. Like, right. We have our own people, because we also know that we have blind spots and weaknesses too. Right. And we need accountability and help and encouragement and support. Right. So Absolutely. We're no different than our listeners that are listening to this show, and they're saying right now, whatever that is, whether that's a coach, a therapist, a mentor, right? Like we want to be supported. As humans, we all want to be supported and heard, right? And so whatever that comes in the form of, whether that is your mentor or your coach, your counselor, your therapist, the bottom line is humans, we all want to be heard. You know?
Exactly. And yeah, we have that need inside of us to be known, to be loved.
Yeah.
And
good stuff.
That's normal. That's normal. I will say, I wanted to go back to something you had said, Jennifer, about like a lot of our pain and suffering does come from the actions of others. And you had talked about that bitterness. And I have had to work through that with the church and how they responded to my husband's mental illness and addiction. And I learned this when I was a little girl, but it's like holding bitterness is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. And I always think about that because I'm like, it hurts you. And I go from the perspective, you'll like this as a life coach, but like can do, can't do. And that has really helped me day to day as I function in our new life and our new chapters, is not necessarily making all that okay and what people did okay, but it's filtering it to say, I cannot change them, but I will choose what I can do. And that is keep living forward in my life and working towards not letting them have that control in your mind anymore. So I just want to acknowledge that a lot of these hurts, a lot of these struggles do come from other people's actions towards you. And if that's you, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Well, Krissie, you are remarkable. I just think your story, to be able to come on the other side of this. And like I said in the beginning, I'm going to praise you again, to be able to come on the other side, use your story to make peace and betterment of other people is important. And I applaud you for that. Mm-hmm. And just say you're a remarkable woman, and you are raising, I'm sure, 2 amazing kids right now, which in itself is mother. I know that I'm a mom. I say the little kid phase, it's like you got these little kids and like you feel like in the moment that you're in even that, like that, some things with that will never end, and they get big so very quickly. And so I admire you and say, enjoy your kiddos while you can right now, because they grow so fast. So
I can't believe they're already in kindergarten. They're fun chaos. So a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, I'm going to switch this up because I know we've talked about a lot of serious stuff here, and I think this is such great information, but I do want to ask you some fun questions, because I know that, on the other side of this, you've got all this great energy, and you're just vivacious and friendly, and I think authentic and real. So this is actually probably one of my favorite parts of the show, because I think it just shows, I feel like you've already been vulnerable today. I would say vulnerability, but I think you've already kind of been there, but I just think this is the fun part of the show. So I'm going to ask you some fun questions here. All right. So let's do this. Favorite guilty pleasure food?
Oh, goodness. I'm a foodie. I always say food is my love language. So it's hard to pick one, but I would definitely say chips and queso. I think anytime I need like food, chips and queso.
I'm chips and salsa, like every Friday night, chips and salsa. I don't need anything else but just chips and salsa. And queso is good too. I can go for that one too. So, all right. Let's see. Favorite book that you've read recently?
Oh, goodness. That is tough. That is a tough one. It's hard not to say. Goodness. I love going back to books. So like books I've read before. And so I recently read one. It's actually right here beside me. It's Abba's Child by Brennan Manning. And he has a lot of great stuff. But I went back to that one because I think I just needed to remember the foundation of how God sees me and who I am. And so I was like, I need to go back to that one. So I just finished that one. I have about 3 more here that I'm going to read here soon. So in between being a mom and and working. So
very good. Very good. All right. Favorite place that you've ever traveled to?
So I was a missionary in Chile, South America. And I think that's probably will always be my all-time favorite place. There's a place on the Chilean and Argentinian border, and it's called San Martin. And I've never been to Switzerland, but it's probably similar from what I've heard. But it's surrounded by mountains, and it's in the valley with this blue lake. And so sometimes it's been, goodness, 12 years or something since I've been there, but that's like my happy place. That's where I go when I need to remember just peace and beauty. And so that would definitely be my favorite place. I'd love to go back there.
I knew somebody that just was there. So, and I feel like I kind of got that same, no, I haven't been there, so I don't know. I can't speak for my personal, but I saw pictures of it and it was just kind of beautiful. So,
yeah.
All right. Last one question I want to ask you. What's the first concert you ever attended?
That's going way back. I I think it was a Stephen Curtis Chapman DC Talk concert.
Fun. I love this question.
So my dad was a pastor.
Yeah.
And so we were like all about those Christian concerts, and I loved both of them. So I think I went to like 3 of their concerts when I was younger. So
that's awesome. All right, Krissie, well, this has been amazing. Like I said, thank you for sharing with everybody. If our audience wants to find out a little bit more about you, and or maybe even get in touch with you, where do we want to send them? Where do you want me to tell them to go?
So I have a website. I have not updated the blog in a while, but it does have resources for people who are hurting, grief resources, counseling resources. That is KrissieJoy.com. And that's KrissieJoy.com. And so that's probably the best way. And again, you can email me through the website, but you can also see like the resources and you can read some of the blogs about my grief journey. So that's probably the best way to get a hold of me.
We'll make sure too, when this goes out, I'll get the website put in there so they know how to find that. And you do have a great site on your site. So that's how I found out what you were doing before I even got in touch with you. So it's great to hear the stories so you can get some ideas of, their background and all that good stuff. So we'll make sure it gets in the right places. And of course, we do want to say to listeners, if you enjoy our show, please be sure you give us a rating both on iTunes and Facebook. We can't do this without you. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube. And we want to leave you guys with a final thought. In order to live the extraordinary, you must start, and every start begins with a decision. You guys take care, be safe, and be kind to one another. We will see you next time.